crazy day today. Things were just lightning speed with the way the day played out. And this is...
Thank God for Doug. I wouldn't want to have another extra day.
I think that I see there's Doug's shoulder, but here's how this ultimately played out.
I ask that the deputy clerk publish the verdict.
In the Superior Court of Liberty County, State of Georgia, case number 2024 R-67, State of Georgia versus Nicholas James Kassotis. Count 1, malice murder, guilty. Count 2, felony murder, guilty. Count 3, aggravated assault, guilty. Count 4, concealing death of another, guilty. Count 5, possession of a knife during the commission of a felony, guilty. Count 6, possession of a tool for the commission of a crime, guilty. Count 7, possession of a tool for the commission of a crime, guilty. Count 8, possession of a tool for the commission of the crime, guilty. Count 9, possession of a tool for the commission of a crime, guilty. Count 10, possession of tools for the commission of a crime, guilty. Count 11, removal of the body parts from the scene of the death, guilty. Count 12, tampering with evidence, guilty. On this 14th day of August 2025.
All right. Well, certainly a gentleman who we've always appreciated and appreciate more so today because he's coming on during not the best day, I can imagine. Doug, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. As you told me when we were chatting earlier, texting, you'll come on with the good and the bad, basically, and we appreciate that. So,
so do our viewers, Doug. As you can see, everybody loves you. Most defense attorneys, when they're in cases that people don't like, they hate the defense attorney. They just adore you for defending him, and we do too.
That's kind of everybody. And Linda and Michael, thank you for having me on. And yeah, I meant it. I can't just go on the press when I win. That wouldn't be right. So taking the loss. I
think we lost Doug.
Yeah, we did. Are you muted there, Doug? Or
no,
you're back.
That.
There you go.
Yeah, that's a car thing. Sorry about that. Can you hear me still?
Yep, got you.
Yeah, gotcha.
I apologize.
But look at all these comments. You're amazing. They love you.
And Doug, up until there was a moment in your final cross-examination of the GBI agent, you had a punchy finish with all of the holes that were clearly a problem for the prosecution, and that is no cause of death, no body, no location, all of those things. It was the crescendo you're looking for.
Right.
But your client wanted to tack on a couple of questions. Interesting moment. Thoughts?
As I do not have to tell both of you, client management is always an issue in a case. My client in this case has a JD, he has an LLM, he's incredibly intelligent, he has experience as a defense attorney and a prosecutor. So while he was very good and understood that he has to defer to me on trial strategy, I felt that since his life was on the line, at times that I should honor some of his wishes.
Interesting way to put it. He really, what's amazing to me though, first of all, he's a babe magnet. We have 3 wives. We have the 3rd wife, right? With the first wife, we have the 2nd wife who he's alleged to have killed and cut up, including, I gather, from what I gather, cutting off the head so there'd be no dental identification and all. And then a 3rd wife. I know you can't reveal client confidences, but as I've told people, that it's the client's choice whether they want to plead guilty or not guilty, client's choice whether they want a judge or a jury trial, client's choice whether or not they want to testify. There's not much you can do about that. He wanted to testify clearly and tell his story. Did you, were you able to have input in that decision, even if you can't tell us what the input was?
Well, obviously, I have input on all the decisions that, certainly all the ones that I'm entitled to make, and any one that he's entitled to make. All my clients give me input into that. But I think, as you may have pointed out, ultimately it's his decision as to whether or not he wants to testify. He is the one that could be going to prison for life. So it's completely his call. Obviously, I advise clients in all kinds of situations, and this would be no different. And as you understand, I can't, disclose the advice I gave here.
Mm-hmm. Right. How about, just before Michael goes back, how about the dad? The dad was in the courtroom. I think he was in a blue shirt most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Were you able to have independent contact with him and watching his son? Because when we're watching him and he's on the stand, we don't know how somebody with all these law degrees and was in JAG and was in the military got to be the person that we saw on the stand. And I was wondering whether you had any discussions or input with Dad.
I don't know what you are implying by the person we saw on the stand. What exactly do you mean by that?
Well, he was telling a story that seemed, he was telling a story that really seemed unbelievable. It seemed totally unbelievable, when we're watching it.
But that story, first of all, let me go back to the first part.
Yeah.
Discussions with his family. I've had discussions with his family and was authorized by him to have discussions with his parents over the last 2 years. So we've been in communication a lot. As far as what he had to say on the stand, I mean, what he said on the stand was consistent with his first police interrogation and with his second police interrogation. So I don't quite understand what he's supposed to say on the stand other than that which is consistent with those two interrogations, and also is his truth in this. So he is what's the right word? He has conviction that what he has been telling to law enforcement and on the stand is the truth. So that is what he got up on the stand and said.
Well,
And I admitted to the jury in my closing that story is insane. That story is very difficult to believe. And I tried, I may be jumping ahead, but that's why I really did not want to force the jury into kind of a Karen Reed situation where they had to believe one of two theories. I didn't want to present an alternative theory. I wanted to just poke holes in the state's case. And that's really what I tried to focus on and take their attention away from Jim McIntyre. Because Jim McIntyre is not important. Sadly, what happened with Samantha, the third wife, that really doesn't have to do with whether or not Nicholas Kassotis murdered his second wife, murdered Mindi. Those aren't the issue. Whether he murdered Mindi should come down to the evidence presented by the state around that particular crime.
Right, whether they could prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. No doubt about that. You're absolutely right about that.
And that's clearly what you had done up to the point your client took the stand. And if there were holes that you had punched in their case, he kind of tried to fill them in, and apparently the jury didn't buy it.
I don't think he tried to he tried to fill holes that I had punched in my cross, but I guess I'm not really going to get into his testimony other than to say that his testimony was consistent with the testimony he'd previously given in his interrogations, and once he decided to take the stand, any other testimony from him other than that which would have been consistent would have been terrible.
Yeah. I always tell people, Doug, that all the things that a lawyer does to create reasonable doubt that are great in a trial, that once the client takes the stand, you can forget all that. The case comes down to whether the jury either likes the client or believes the client once the client takes the stand. Because you did an amazing job. There's a question here from Sheila Duffy, as you know, is one of our early followers. Were you surprised by the verdict? Or was he surprised by the verdict? I mean, you can't tell us your conversation. Do you think he was surprised by the verdict, and were you surprised by the verdict?
I mean, I'm not going to speculate as to whether he was surprised by the verdict. And frankly, we didn't even discuss that. And of course, if we did, I wouldn't disclose it. Was I surprised?
And I'm trying not to ask you anything.
No. You're doing great.
That.
You're doing great, and I'm just being cautious. Was I surprised by the verdict? I would say that I don't know what you guys are like. One of my problems is that I can begin to drink my own Kool-Aid. And I'm sorry if that's offensive for people old enough to know what it means. Mm-hmm. But I tend to, the more I work on a case, one of my faults is that I tend to buy into my positions and perhaps overly buy into them. And even as we sit here today, right this moment, hours from the verdict, as far as from a legal standpoint, I still do not believe that the state presented evidence to allow a rational trier of fact to find guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. But we all know the reality. And you guys did not see, thankfully, I mean, you guys should be thankful too. You guys did not see those pictures of Mindi, which were, I don't have enough of a vocabulary, grotesque, horrific. They were just terrible. And I think if you're a juror and you see those pictures, that perhaps that reasonable doubt that's up here, maybe it gets lowered a little bit. Because if the standard was more likely than not, then I would be like, okay, I'm not surprised. But I begged the jury to try to be objective about their viewing of the evidence. But it is hard for any individual to do that when you have seen what happened to Mindi Kassotis and the state has only presented you with one individual that you can punish for that.
Yeah. Did the court limit the number of those images? Did the prosecution press for even more of them, or was there an agreement on just limited use?
Given my YSL experience, I'm very sensitive because in that case, the state really liked to pile on the photographs and it was a constant battle. So I filed a motion in limine, I think before this trial even started, trying to keep those numbers of photographs limited. And we reached an agreement prior to trial. And honestly, I think we kept them to the bare minimum.
Yeah. Very civilized. Crazy idea, right? To actually work with the other side and the court to do that.
I had a very good professional relationship with the prosecutor in this case. I don't really have any complaints about her. The things that she did in trial were all legitimate tactics that can be taken by a party to a litigation. So someone asked me earlier, did you know she was going to defer opening? I had no clue she was going to defer opening. I suspected she might do it, but I didn't know it was going to happen.
Yeah, you took this case as a signed case. Was this an assigned case?
No, I was hired for this case.
You were hired for the case. All right.
Yeah, I have a lawyer friend in common with Nicholas Kassotis, and this friend recommended me to his family.
And it was a good recommendation because lawyer likability is so very important to the jury. Has any of the jurors tried to reach out to you at all?
I don't know that any likability that I may have made any difference in this case, given the outcome.
Well,
I was hoping to speak to more jurors, but I was able to speak to one juror. And he was complimentary, but he just felt that even though the evidence was circumstantial, he thought that it was beyond a reasonable doubt. And of course, I'm not going to argue with him. Mostly I don't know what you guys do when you interview jurors, but mostly I try to do it so I can learn to get better the next time.
Of course.
I don't want to hear any praise. I want constructive criticism.
Right.
Yep.
So, and I got a little of that, which I was thankful for.
Oh, good. Good. Yeah, likability, as I say, never underestimate the power of likability, and it goes for the attorney as well as the client. But Doug, you can only be so likable.
You know,
You're very
I don't,
likable.
I don't think this came across, unfortunately, and I don't really know what I could have done about it. And obviously, I don't know Nicholas Kassotis as well as I knew Diamante Kendrick. I didn't spend that much time with him. It was over 2 years, but it's still not that much time. He is he's a very likable guy, and I don't mean that he's charming. I wouldn't say he's charming. He's a nice guy.
That's what we've heard. We heard that from everybody: family,
Everyone.
friends, exes.
No one.
No, not mean, not dangerous, never angry.
No, no, and that's why I wasn't. Even though these witnesses wouldn't talk to me, and I was, I guess, taking some risks and asking some of those questions, I kind of knew what the honest answer would be. Um, Everyone finds him likable. He's not. I don't. I don't know what's going on with the murder of Mindi Kassotis, but it is very difficult for anyone that knows Nicholas Kassotis to believe that he could have done this.
Isn't that interesting? Because this is the question that I saw coming up a lot, and you don't have to answer it if you don't want. Laura Thompson, I have only one question. Where is Jim McIntyre, and why did he not speak out on Nick's behalf? Because when you led into that, I mean, here's a man who's Sony bought a story for $300,000. I mean, and we all know that in the business, that's a lot of money for a first-time writer's story. So somewhere somebody, liked him, trusted him, did business with him. So I guess that's the one question that came coming up is who is this Jim McIntyre? Where did he come from, and where is he? And why couldn't anybody find him? And wouldn't that have made a difference in the trial?
And of course, it would have made a difference if we could have presented Jim McIntyre. And if I would be more of a stunt lawyer, I would have made the move of calling Jim McIntyre to the stand, and then any jurors that turned to look at the door.
Right. We've heard those stories. Right.
That might have been all of them.
But I was not going to do. I was not going to do that game. But one of the problems with Jim McIntyre is, as I think my client said in his interviews, he doubted that was really even his real name toward the end. So I just had no way of finding Jim McIntyre. I have to go with the facts that I have in his defense, and that's one of the reasons you don't do police interrogations. And because of that police interrogation, I had to open with Jim McIntyre.
Yeah.
Because they were going to hear about Jim McIntyre.
So Donnie Wahlberg also, as you know, he's been on our show a lot. He certainly was consistent. His memory is sharp. So sad for both of the families. So that the same thing you're saying, that he was consistent in his story. He was absolutely consistent in the story that he was telling.
And what I'd like to point out to your viewers who may not have watched the whole trial to hear this is, when one hears this story that hasn't really looked at this trial much, you would think, oh, he made this up after the fact once he was arrested. But as I pointed out to the jury, he lived this Jim McIntyre story. He lived this Jim McIntyre life for years and years before he was arrested. It wasn't something he created after the fact. Whether you believe there's a Jim McIntyre or not, you can't disbelieve that he and Mindi acted as if there was a Jim McIntyre long before it.
Well, they kept moving. I mean, it was like 50 moves over a period of 5 years.
I should show you. I mean, I can't, but if you could see my notes on all of his moves, constantly on the move, and with very little notice. Yeah. Very little notice.
And in theory, all of that driven by Jim McIntyre's urging, because they were in danger. Let me ask you this, and we talked about this last Friday. I asked if you felt that the jury might think that because he's this fiction writer, and to Linda's point, he's had some success at it, if they wouldn't think, well, maybe this is just another story. Do you think the case would have been better if he had not been a writer?
I don't know what would have saved this case. I mean, on direct, I think I asked him about, is this just another piece of fiction? Is Jim McIntyre just another piece of fiction that you've written along with all the other fiction? I mean, I wanted to give him the opportunity to address that exact issue. And he addressed it and said, no,
Yeah,
it's not,
yeah.
not fiction.
That's smart to get out in front of that. But I just wonder if that was not on the field, didn't exist, whether or not it might have been even better.
As a defense attorney, I wish there was. I don't want any of my clients to talk to the police.
Yeah, no, I know. We hope
Yeah.
that.
I don't want to
We
be
hope that, right.
hamstrung like that. Yeah, I don't want to be hamstrung like that. I
Yeah.
wish there was no Jim McIntyre.
Yeah.
But even
But he's going to tell you that anyhow, Doug. Romy, member for 4 months. Thank you. I just interject that. He's going to tell you that anyhow. So I have a question for you, and this is something that I posed yesterday. His story seems so outrageous, so ridiculous, so whatever, that it led me to say, well, does he have some type of, and I don't need your comment on this, mental disease? So the question I have is, did the judge ever broach having an independent analysis to see whether he was able to voluntarily make a decision whether to testify or not? Did the judge ever do that? Because I had cases where that's happened.
the judge did not raise that issue of mental competence. It's never been raised in this case. I think that I have an obligation as an attorney, if I believe there's a mental competence issue, to have evaluations and to present that to the court. And I did not raise any type of mental competency issue in this case.
Was there, Doug, ever any discussion with the DA's office? Did they ever suggest to you that the pregnancy, if there was one, was legit, and that they were considering some sort of secondary charge for death of an infant or fetus? Did they ever have enough info to suggest that was a factor?
No, because they knew as soon as they did the autopsy on Mindi that she was not pregnant. And it was a shock to everyone. I mean, I think it was a shock, at least in the interrogation, it was a shock to Nick.
It's just a strange case. Joey Kane, by the way, thank you. Joey's here again, gifted another Justice Sir TV membership so we can bring people like Doug to all of you here. It would be anything that you would have done now. You're not even looking back. You're probably you're probably exhausted, as we know, given everything that you can. Everyone, as I said, loves you, whatever. But there also was some issue. Mindi seemed to, this was a long time relationship, marriage with him. And Mindi seemed to go with him everywhere and all. And the friends who had contact with Mindi didn't seem to indicate that they thought she was in danger at all. I don't understand how you can justify the two sides it appears that your client may have had. The one where the cops say he callously cut up her body, he killed her and cut up her body, and the side where all of her friends said, well, she never expressed danger. She went along with everything. She was part of his life and what he was doing. I mean, they were doing it together.
Well, I think there was testimony that Mindi had told multiple friends that they were in danger, that they had a security detail, that they moved around.
But it wasn't in danger from him. He wasn't.
Oh, not a danger. No. There was never any indication that he was anything but a loving husband. I mean, there really wasn't. Her parents loved him. They were a tight-knit, in-laws, child, husband, living together, and clearly an unusual situation with strange restrictions, but every indication that the four of them all got along fabulously.
The parents testified for the prosecution, but they really were testifying for the defense. I mean, their testimony was helpful to him.
Yeah, I mean, I think in general their testimony was helpful to him because they backed up, a lot of his story about Jim McIntyre came out through the state's witnesses, through things that Mindi had said. Obviously pre-trial we had issues with discussing hearsay and residual hearsay rules and things we were going to allow in from that Mindi had told other people. But we worked all those out prior to trial, and I think I got everything in I wanted to get in.
What about the practice there in the courthouse? And I know early on when you were anticipating going there to Liberty County, not your backyard, not exactly. What was that experience like?
Well, you mean as far as it being not my normal stomping grounds?
Yeah, like not the neighborhood you're used to. Different court personnel, all of that.
Yeah, it's funny. Like geographically, this is the area I grew up in.
Oh,
I grew up 2 hours south of here in Jacksonville, Florida, and Jacksonville, Brunswick, Savannah, like the swath all the way up to Charleston. It's all very, very similar geography, similar people. So in a way, it was like trying a case back where I grew up.
yeah.
I'm in courthouses all over Georgia. I always have to kind of reorient a little bit when I'm there. The people in this courthouse, all of them, were really welcoming, warm, explaining how they do things here. Because shoot, every county in Georgia is different, and then within any given county or circuit, every judge is different. But everyone was great about telling me the lay of the land here. I mean, I really appreciated it.
Yeah, and for
They
those
were
whose
great.
ears
They were great.
might have perked up when they heard Brunswick County, of course, Ahmed Arbery's case was in that county,
Right.
just south of you at Liberty, just south of there, right?
Yeah, Brunswick is like halfway. Well, it's more on the Savannah, on the Jacksonville side between
Right.
Savannah and Jacksonville. So
Right.
Brunswick's maybe an hour from here, I'm going to guess.
Yeah.
And I used to know the name of that county, but I'm forgetting it. But yeah, Ahmed Arbery was there. Obviously, Brian Steele was down there defending the
Right.
prosecutor in that county. But sometimes I will say in Georgia, you get some pretty bad home cooking in certain of these smaller towns,
Mhm.
and I had none of that here. None of
I
that.
think that happens in Fulton County, but I'm not sure.
Were you surprised by the quickness of the verdict?
I thought it might happen like that.
Yeah,
I
hour
thought-
and 17 was the official time, but
yeah, I mean, we got past an hour. I'm like, oh, okay, we're past an hour. That's good. But hour 17, I mean,
yeah,
that's not good in this case. That's not good.
and that's from the point that they were basically dismissed to begin deliberation. So that's travel time, get organized, say their first couple of thoughts.
They've got to vote on a foreman. Think about
Yeah,
that. That
they got
takes
12
time.
counts. They got
I don't want. I'm not going to say anything bad about the jury, but it's just hard to imagine considering all the evidence in that brief a time period. Of course, they're considering it while they're sitting in the courtroom.
Sure.
And I get that.
Right. And we've talked about there's two types of jurors: the jurors that go in and say, "Okay, what do you all think?" and then they decide, or the jurors who want to sit down and find for themselves. And clearly, you had the first type of juror. What do you all think? And that was kind of it. But what do you think was the most significant fact in getting the conviction, the prosecution getting the conviction?
I think the same thing you guys think. You haven't said it, but I assume it's my client taking the stand.
Yeah, and quite often that's the case.
Or it's either that or the nature of what happened to Mindi Kassotis and those photographs.
Yeah.
Those are hard for me to look at, and I do this for a living.
Yeah.
I can't imagine the response of people that, fortunately for them, do not have to look at these kind of photographs. I'm sure these jurors will be seeing these photographs in their minds the rest of their lives, unfortunately.
As a matter of fact, the New York Times, if you haven't looked at it, did an article, I think the past week, talking about the PTSD that jurors have. That they can't put, some have to go into counseling. Some states have programs because they cannot put, when they're in murder cases, the photographs out of their mind. And that's when we talk about even autopsy pictures, that if you're not dealing with them, you don't understand what it is. They're just to other people, death is, let's face it, death is not a pleasant thing to look at, and under any circumstance.
It isn't, and I would rather not have to look at those photographs or deal with that either. I mean, when I was at U.S. Steel, I did some accident investigation, and there's things I saw there, 35 years ago that I still see.
Wow.
So yeah, that makes me wonder about the jury. I wasn't as in tune when they were being picked. What kind of occupation, age groups, what did that look like?
It's interesting. The jury was a very diverse jury. Um, I'm trying to remember even how many Caucasians, just a few on the jury. Pretty much everyone in this jury pool, Hinesville, where this trial took place, is, and now I'm blanking because I'm tired, but there's the Army base there, big. This is not good that I'm forgetting, but there's a huge Army base there. And someone's going to say it in the comments, I'm sure, and help me out. But everyone on that jury is either, not I say everyone, I would bet 95% based on the pool, former military, married to someone that was in the military, married to someone that is in the military. In the military, I mean, there's a military connection with everybody there. So I don't know how that may have affected things. I don't know how much that was this type of behavior is not tolerated in the military. I don't know if that hurt us at all.
Hunter, Fort Stewart, either of those make sense?
Yeah, Fort Stewart.
Okay.
I think it's Hunter Army Airfield maybe, and then it's Fort Stewart. And Fort Stewart's huge. And if you remember, we had that terrible shooting at Fort Stewart last week
in the
middle of this trial.
That's right.
Right during the trial, yeah.
Oh, man.
Now we have a lot of questions, but some of them I'm going to wait and answer for everybody's understanding after Doug leaves, because Doug's gracious enough to come on and talk to us about his view.
I want him to see this at least before we let him go.
Doug, I truly appreciate how you defend clients, and I think that's all of it. And I just retweeted you. Somebody said, "How could you take a case like that?" We are defense attorneys. Everybody has a defense, and the client insisted that he was innocent. And it was it really is a case that's amazing in the sense that the woman, the wife, the victim, Mindi, never indicated that she was ever scared of him. And yet you have and never indicated that her story about this Jim McIntyre to friends was different than his. And yet you have this incredible story. And I'm not using story in terms of made up, an incredible
narrative,
a rendition of facts. And then she ends up, the way she ends up. And then he ends up, I guess, married again. And
I think with a case like this, most folks would expect either from the subject relationship or the prior wife or even the subsequent wife that there be some domestic violence issue, something,
He has, I know he didn't necessarily look great in court, and I don't know why he came across that way, because
he came across, in our opinion, he came across terrible. We thought you had a shot before he took the stand.
I know, but he just, I don't know the right word to describe him. I don't want to say banal, but it's innocuous, like not someone you could ever expect this from. And just to repeat, all the witnesses testified that he was a kind, gentle person.
It truly is. It truly is something that really the psychologists have to study with his family and everything else and see what's happening. But you were great. You were terrific. Yeah. And is there anything else you want to say before we let you go? Because we really appreciate you coming on the day that you had to close, get a verdict. I mean, get a sentence all at once. I mean, mind blowing.
Oh my! Oh, someone asked something in all caps, so I'm required to respond to it. Asked Doug his thoughts on the prosecutor. I thought the prosecutor was very professional. She was efficient in going through things. She was reasonable in all of the objections that I would have and working out positions. She's tough, but she's fair and she's honest. And so I don't know what more I can want in a prosecutor.
Yeah, there were a lot of comments, especially in the cross-examination of your client and in her closing, that she was just a little yelly, a little loud. But that's a style thing, and whatever you do, you do. But those were things people specifically pointed out.
Well, she's from the city, so
Yeah, well, yeah.
You know how people are from the city.
Yeah, we have another, before we let you go, just two more clients. Doug, I truly appreciate how you defend clients. That's from Joanne Jetoplatopoulos, who's one of our members here who really follows us and has followed you in your career. And thank you, Joanne, for that donation. And also, curiously, Doug is a great lawyer with a powerful gentleness.
That's a nice phrase.
That's a really nice
Powerful
phrase.
gentleness.
Can we
Yeah.
put that on my
Gentleness.
website? Thank you.
I think you can. Okay.
What
Yeah.
about the Doug was completely out of his depth and should
No.
never take this case
So
on?
Brian wants to know,
No.
Doug, Brian B. Doug, is there a YouTube channel for you in the cards?
Ooh.
I don't think
It's
so.
a lot of work, let me tell you.
I
We have
don't
two
think
jobs
so.
here, the law
I'm-
practice and all.
I'm still trying. I'm still struggling with getting my practice organized and off the ground, and it is all consuming, the business side that no one sees and everything else. And yeah, it's probably time for me to staff up a little bit. So yeah, I don't have time for anything else right now.
Yeah, it's yeah. Stick with what you're doing. Believe me, it's do that. There will be plenty of time for goofing around on media when when you want.
Yeah.
Okay, buddy. What's next? You have
Buddy, we'll
another?
see.
You got something else on the calendar at this point?
I've got several criminal trials coming up, but I don't know exactly when they're going to be.
Okay.
Nothing I think that would be of enough interest to attract people.
Well,
'Cause
we have
as you
interest
know, I
in you
told you-
because we love you.
I told you guys about Kassotis before it was coming.
Right.
Yeah, we knew it was coming.
We
Other
said we
people-
were there.
Other
What
people, it wasn't on their radar, but I don't really have anything to tell you about.
was Law and Crime the pool or Court TV? Do you know?
Court TV
It
was,
was
the,
Court TV because
which
I
is
know that we
why
had
you
talked
had-
about it ahead of time. Yeah.
Court TV. I'm learning the differences. Court TV was the pool, which is why you had 3 cameras in there,
Yes.
because they
Right.
descend, as you know, with
Yes.
a large production team.
They bring the
Whereas
SAT
Law and
truck and
Crime-
everything. Mhm.
Law and Crime pretty much is single camera.
Right. Law and Crime
yeah.
ships their camera overnight, and single camera, basically. Yeah.
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 So this
Yeah.
was Court TV. That
It was
doing
yeah, it was well produced. It was.
Very well produced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
you
sir.
look- we'll see you
have
soon.
a long weekend. Take tomorrow off. Would you do that? Can you take tomorrow off?
My civil clients are already all over me. And I have to turn my attention to them in the morning because they have been patiently waiting, slightly patiently waiting for
Yes,
this trial
right.
to be over.
The business of law that no one sees.
So I have to go deal with that. But thank
Okay.
you again for having me on, okay?
Of course.
Thank you, Doug, always.
All right.
See you next time, bud. Bye.
Bye.